Yes!
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist. Captain America Civil War is out in theaters, and I'm sure all of you guys have seen it. A lot of you are probably tweeting at me and ruining the movie for me, and thank you very much, but I've already seen it, so thanks for trying to do that. In any event, Marvel Ultimate Alliance is today's game, and while I do want to say Superhero Month is over and moved on with, I do want to talk about at least something tied to Civil War. Kind of. I guess I should have done Ultimate Alliance 2, because that literally is the plot of the Civil War storyline from the comics. But I like to go in order, so tomato, tomato to Batman. There have been video games starring Marvel comic characters for almost as long as there have been video games. But despite how long these characters have existed in multimedia, mainstream audiences didn't really know about them until very recently. Sure, everyone and their mom might know who Ant-Man is nowadays, but just 10 years ago, most people wouldn't be able to tell you what Iron Man's real name was. It's Robert Downey Jr., by the way. That's his real name, Robert Downey Jr. It was a completely different landscape back then, and when we did get properties featuring Marvel heroes, they almost always featured a single hero or an established team. No universe-spanning stories. And on top of that, when we did get the occasional cartoon, movie, or game, it was almost always modeled after whatever version of its characters was most popular or most pushed at the time. There may not have been a Marvel Cinematic Universe back then, but there was a thriving X-Men movie franchise, which is undoubtedly a big reason why we got the game known as X-Men Legends in 2004 from Raven Software. It was a dungeon-crawling RPG that featured a bunch of the X-Men as playable characters. And given the X-Men's extensive history and cast of characters, a game that allowed you to play as 4 of them at the same time made a lot of sense. The game proved successful enough to spawn a sequel, as well as a spin-off that spanned the entire Marvel Universe, which is where we are right now. Marvel Ultimate Alliance was released in 2006, and it was kind of a big deal. Remember, it was rare to see representations of the larger Marvel Universe outside of the comics. The game was pretty well received by critics and adored by fans, since it was basically just one giant love letter addressed to them. Now that so many more people are aware of Marvel thanks to all the damn movies, I thought it'd be a nice time to re-examine this old favorite, especially in the Marvel Universe right now, considering that they're all at war with each other. #Civil War. Ultimate Alliance was released for just about every console under the sun, but we'll be tackling the Gold Edition for the Xbox 360 since it has the most content to offer. God, why did I say that? Sometimes you just say a sentence out loud and know it's gonna bite you right in the ass. The SHIELD helicarrier, the flying headquarters of the Marvel Universe's World Police, is under attack by Dr. Doom and his army of Ultron robots. Nick Fury, director of SHIELD, is desperately trying to keep the thing in the air, so he summons 5 teenagers with attitudes. That's the Power Rangers. It's a joke. He actually summons Thor, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and Captain America. The 4 of them kick all kinds of robot booty as they fight their way through the bridge of the helicarrier, where Nick Fury orders them to secure the rest of the ship before the bad guys on board can launch the ship's nukes. The team of heroes battle through villain after villain, culminating with the clash against the giant dragon, an obscure character, Bing Bang Boom. After being blasted with some heavy ballistics, he drops out and the helicarrier is finally saved. But unfortunately, it's badly damaged and can no longer serve as the headquarters for Nick Fury and our heroes. Instead, Robert Downey Jr. offers Stark Tower as the base of operations, while the game tries to figure out just what Dr. Doom is up to and how to stop him. The premise is simple enough, but the story ends up becoming pretty shallow as things move along. It's clear that the developers' main priority was providing as many familiar characters and locations as possible, but unfortunately that makes for thin character development and a plot that's little more than a string of fetching missions one after another. But I get it, gameplay always comes first and I'm glad that it does. I just can't help but notice that with its clunky exposition and the dubious alliances between characters that would never have anything to do with one another, the whole thing comes off like an episode of the Superhero Squad show. Yeah, you remember that shit?
You got that right, Iron Bub.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance is like a time capsule from a bygone era of Marvel Comics. Now, I know we're talking about 10 years ago, but the way that the game presents these characters is completely different from how they are today. Remember when Wolverine was going through his street clothes only phase? Or how about the fact that the game begins with a quartet of heroes that isn't the Big Four? And Nick Fury is still a white guy.
But given that it's a stupid-ass decision, I've elected to ignore it.
But the game doesn't just feature some nostalgic Marvel content, it's chock full of it. The game's many characters all look and behave very closely to their source material. Spider-Man quips,
Excuse me, is this the ferry to Staten Island?
the Thing clobbers, and the Watcher, well, watches with a watch. But a lot of the basic animations are shared across lots of the playable characters. Captain America, Storm, Deadpool, they all walk exactly the same way. The Thing and Spider-Man both jump the exact same height. Look, I understand that the characters can't have capabilities that are too different for the sake of gameplay. It's just a shame to have such a lack of uniqueness and individuality among these characters' basic functions. I mean, for real though, don't you think Deadpool could use a better running animation? Yeah, boy. The game's background art looks fine for the most part, and as you move through the game, the locations do get more varied and start to look more impressive. And as far as the cutscenes go, they range from the serviceable full CGI ones to the hilarious ones that use the in-game assets. Just look at those mocap actors emote. The music, while somewhat generic and repetitive, does match the levels pretty well. The soundtrack may be fine, but it offers nothing that's truly memorable, despite the fact that these tracks will undoubtedly get burned into your brain as you play. Occasionally, the characters will deliver one-liners that really give them some much-needed personality.
That's right, I won. Fear me.
The problem is that there aren't that many of these lines per character, so they get old quite fast.
That's right, I won. Fear me.
That's right, I won. Fear me.
While the bosses do have unique dialogue, your responses to them are usually generic and lacking voiceovers. But if you're lucky enough to have the hero on your team who matches up with whatever villain or NPC you're facing, then you will get some pretty neat dialogue. To be honest, Ultimate Alliance looks and sounds okay, but the sheer attention to detail in representing these characters and their world is impressive and much appreciated. Both in and outside of gameplay, there's a lot for fans of the Marvel Universe. The devs were clearly attempting to please a lot of different kinds of people with their product, which is really a hard thing to do. And speaking from experience, I know that one quite well. Get ready to crawl through some dungeons, man, because Marvel Ultimate Alliance is a dungeon crawler through and through. You'll be beating up bad guys, collecting items, and solving simple puzzles, all while leveling your characters up RPG style. And when it comes to those characters, there are a ton to choose from. Just look at this huge roster. While a few of your favorites have to be unlocked as you play through the campaign, you'll still start off with the whole squad of dudes. We roll deep in the Marvel U, yo. You can control a team of up to 4 heroes, mixing and matching who you want as much as you want. The heroes you choose will affect the style and capabilities of your team. But in addition to that, choosing specific teams will also provide various stat boosts. For example, using 4 Avengers will give your team extra damage, while using all X-Men will provide extra energy for your powers. There's a whole list of these teams out there and their conditions, so feel free to look them up and experiment. Even as part of a team, each character has unique powers all their own, in addition to their regular attacks and combos that are shared across all the characters. These superpowers are unlocked as your heroes level up, and once unlocked, you can continue to invest points into the ones you like to make them stronger. You've only got 3 slots for your powers at any time, so you'll have to experiment and choose which ones work best for you. Each character also has an ultimate move known as an extreme attack. Is the screen full of bad guys? Or maybe you need to deal a ton of damage to a boss? Then look no further than these badass techniques. You'll have to fill up your momentum gauge by fighting before you can use them. But be warned, if you use an extreme attack with one character, every member of your team with full momentum will automatically unleash theirs as well. I guess the hype is just too much to handle. I mean, if I saw the Human Torch incinerate a room full of dudes next to me, I'd want to throw my elbows around too, okay? Advancing through the game's levels means hunting items, hitting switches, and destroying specific objects. But there are a few breaks in the normal flow of things every now and then, like this classic elevator ambush fight, or a working version of Pitfall in the middle of the game. I'll be damned. Pitfall. The main currency and collectible of the game are shield credits, which you can use to buy upgrades. They can be found by defeating enemies and breaking open objects in the environment. But you can immediately buff your characters in other ways too, like finding stat bonuses or equipping a piece of equipment, which are found in weapon caches or dropped by tougher foes. Speaking of your enemies, most of them are generic foot soldiers themed after the location in which you encounter them in. Sometimes it's robots, sometimes it's aim soldiers, sometimes it's the guy from AIM, and sometimes it's demons from hell. But what's cool about them are their resistances. For instance, some will take minimal damage from physical attacks, while others can only be damaged after being knocked into the air. Because of this, you have to take different enemy types into account when building your team. You know, having combat that isn't totally brain dead is kind of nice. Each level contains a few classic Marvel villains as sub-bosses, which are basically beefed up versions of normal enemies with an extra ability type or two. They can be tough, but the general strategy of bum rushing them like a gang of thugs works pretty well. But the final bosses of each level tend to step things up quite a bit. They usually require very unique strategies that utilize the arena in which you're fighting, and require you to solve environmental puzzles or quick-time events to damage the boss. Now, the best thing about the game is undoubtedly the customization and opportunities for self-expression that it offers. If you want to build a team of just characters who have died and come back to life, then go right ahead. If you want Captain America to tank damage while Iceman supports your DPS from Blade, then have a ball. The system is very open, which encourages experimentation and multiple playthroughs. My team? I went with beards only. Hey, goatees count, and so do mutton chops. Steve, don't look at me like that. Get the f*** out of here, Steve. You were fired like 3 episodes ago. Dr. Doom has been a little naughty dictator. Naughty. He's teamed up with some of the Marvel Universe's worst villains to steal the power of Odin, the king of the Norse gods. With the power of a god, Doom reshaped the entire world in his image, including every superhero who attempted to stop him. Meanwhile, our heroes have been sent on a wild goose chase through the depths of Atlantis, into another dimension, and all the way to the hearts of 2 completely different galactic empires. But now, Nick Fury's ragtag group is taking the fight right to Doom's doorstep, Castle Von Doom. After battling past all of his minions, including the corrupted versions of some of your friends, you have to face Doom himself. At the start of the battle, he's completely invincible until you destroy the machines around the room that are powering his force field. Now, why a god would need machines to protect himself, I don't know. Each machine is protected by a twisted version of a member of the Fantastic Four, so make sure to deal with them one by one instead of letting them gang up on you, especially since Doom is sending energy blasts your way this whole time. Eliminating the machines will remove Doom's force field, allowing you to leap up to him and mash the corresponding button that appears on screen. Successfully doing so will rob Doom of some of his godlike powers and render him vulnerable. From here on out, it's an old-fashioned brawl against Doom and his minions. This fight is basically just like every other sub-boss fight in the game, except for the fact that Doom possesses a projectile that can knock you on your ass for what feels like forever, and that he's extremely mobile and hard to keep track of. But if you keep the pressure on, Doom is dust. Once defeated, Doom receives a bolt of lightning up the ass, courtesy of Odin, which teleports him to Asgard for some personal punishment. Our heroes are congratulated by Nick Fury, who confirms that the Earth has been transformed back to normal. The heroes let Fury know that they're willing to help again if another threat should show up, which is a weird thing to say when that's what these guys already do. I guess this version of the Marvel Universe doesn't actually have the Avengers. And of course, we're then treated to an obligatory sequel setup scene featuring Galactus as he sets his sights on Earth. Come and get it, Purple Pants. But before the credits start rolling, there are several scenes in which Uatu, the Watcher, details what becomes of the Marvel Universe based on the choices made and actions taken through your playthrough, such as whether or not the mutant race dies to a virus, whether or not Jean Grey becomes the Dark Phoenix, and whether or not Thanos enslaves the human race. Thanks for all the help, Uatu. Real passive-aggressive of you to tell me what could have happened had I made different decisions, instead of just using your powers to help me make the right decision in the first place. Look, I know you're sworn to never interfere with the course of history, but since you actually do interfere so often, you know, like every time you show up, maybe, just maybe, you could have helped out a little bit. But no, I guess being a creeper ass was cool too. Yeah, whatever, Uatu. More like Ugatu. Got you. More like Ugot you. Ugatu. Mugatu.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
If you've been playing through Marvel Ultimate Alliance and dreaming of playing as Nick Fury the whole time, well then you're in luck. Both he and hard mode are unlocked once you beat the game for the first time. But that's not all. Daredevil and Black Panther are playable as well, but to select them, you have to collect 5 of their respective dolls each. These little action figures are hidden throughout the game's levels, and if you want to be the protector of Hell's Kitchen or the king of Wakanda, then you better collect the whole set. Offer valid while supplies last. There are also sketchbooks hidden in the game that unlock cool pieces of artwork. Fancy! And speaking of unlocking things, you can actually get 3 additional costumes per character. Each costume is a throwback to that character's personal history, and they each have their own sets of abilities and upgrades. You get your first extra costume when you defeat 30 enemies while controlling that character, and the second is unlocked after 175 enemies, but the last costume can only be unlocked within that character's comic book mission. That's right, comic book missions. Comic book missions are short, self-contained levels in which you play as a specific hero or fight against specific bosses. They're unlocked by finding simulator discs throughout the levels, and there are a lot of them, and they're a nice break from the main game. Getting enough points to earn the bronze medal will unlock your final costume for your chosen hero. And if you complete every single one of these comic book missions, you'll unlock the final hidden character, the Silver Surfer. Bow before his cosmic power, and his absolute refusal to change his outfit, or in this case, make any good movies, cause man, Lawrence Fishburne, you tried, buddy, you tried. You so tried, but Rise the Silver Surfer, woo-wee. Seriously though, he technically has 4 costumes like everybody else, but he doesn't change at all. They even have different stats, but they all look identical. Look, go ahead, Silver Surfer, do your thing. Don't change for nobody. Except for Fox, cause man, those movies were just change all of them. If you can, change Fantastic Four, Fantastic Four 2, and what was the last one called? What just came out last year that 2 people saw? I saw it, and I can't even tell you the name of the movie. Give me 1 second.
You Googling?
Yes.
Are you Googling? I'm pretty sure it's just Fantastic Four.
It's called Fantastic Four, not the Fantastic, just Fantastic Four. There you go. Change all of that. Marvel Ultimate Alliance is yet another game that sounds great on paper. Execution-wise, Houston, we have a few problems here or there. Looking at the scope of the game, every version of the game looks drastically different than the other. And truth be told, they all suck in their own ways. Graphics not looking good, gameplay simplified or butchered, and only the 360 version has achievements, let alone has the DLC actively on the Game of the Year type edition. Marvel ended up pulling out all of its licensed-based games across the board. All the Capcom games, all the Activision games, and that includes DLC. So unfortunately, if I want to ever play Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, I can't actually complete it. So that kind of sucks. Playing through the campaign takes no time at all, but unlocking every costume and completing every single comic book mission will take quite a while. But the big issue with the 360 version of the game is the amount of bugs that live here. Every single achievement is bugged. When popped, it resets the value for what it is. What does that mean? Well, whenever you unlock an achievement, let's say for a character, if you unlock that character, it will relock it immediately afterwards so you can't use it. Another example, if you need to get 1,000 kills, but there's also an achievement for 100, 250, and 500, when you hit those achievements and those milestones every time, it resets the value of each guy killed to 0. Meaning that if you actually want to get the 1,000 kill achievement, you would have to kill 1,850. Whereas in most games, and by most I mean all games, it's usually a cumulative. This makes this entire experience the worst time I've had on the 360 since the show started. Yeah, I'd say even worse than you, Sneak King, you piece of shit. While minimal of annoyance to some, the only solution for this big oversight is to proc the achievement and then reload your game. You better save all the time. With that said, in my playthrough of Marvel Ultimate Alliance Gold Edition, there were 79 deaths, 28 sketchbooks searched out for, 34 simulator missions beaten with gold rankings across the board, 99 costumes unlocked, 22 hours of regular playtime. However, an additional 50 hours were added for the achievement and bug cleanup issues, adding up to a total of 72 hours, 50 achievements with 8 DLC achievements, all of which were bugged out and caused a lot of issues and required multiple playthroughs or shifty maneuvering to figure it all out, and One watcher who can just go straight to hell for being useless. Marvel Ultimate Alliance is tons of fun whether you're alone or with friends, but I feel like it's superficial fun. It's fun for a little bit because things get real repetitive very quickly. Add in a lot of bugs and one of the worst interactive menus I've ever seen in games, and you've got yourself a pretty mediocre game here that tries to capitalize off of comic book nostalgia and only succeeds partially at best. You want to play a good version of Marvel Ultimate Alliance? Play the sequel, like I should have. But hey, I can't complete it. So you know, you win some, you waste a lot of time in some.
That hurt.
But it worked. No pain, no gain, my boy.
Marvel Ultimate Alliance ended up being one of the most underwhelming experiences I've had to play within the past few years here on the show. The menus are so bad. The achievements procking and removing things is super frustrating. Aside from the bugs and hiccups here and there, you have a game that's pretty mediocre across the board on almost every platform. And this is the case, the sequel is much better. However, this game sold really well across all the platforms because technically speaking, it was a launch title for the Wii and the PS3, so a lot rided on this game, and it actually ended up working out quite well for Activision, thus the sequel came to fruition. Overall, yeah, it's fun. Playing it by yourself? Okay, sure. Playing with the friends? Better? Yeah. I just didn't find it to be as fulfilling and as rewarding as I wanted it to be. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of look at it.
Look at it.
That's all the time we have for today, guys, so please, as always, let us know what you thought about today's episode somewhere on the internet. Question of the day, did you see Civil War, and how was it? I'm pretty sure it was great. I could be wrong. I hoped Batman vs Superman was great. I liked it, everyone else hated it. Go figure. Star Fox all over again. Now, if you excuse me, let's just look at Colossus running around beating people up with other people. That was my favorite part of this game, was Colossus and Hulk. They had the ability to just pick people up and use them like weapons. So, let's get footage of that, mixed with some funny music.
Things that bother you never bother me. I feel happy and fine. Ha-ha! Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Having got a lot, I don't need a lot. Coffee's only a dime. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.